Hi, welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers. My name is Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happening in their own individual business and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. I'd like to introduce our fantastic panel of guests, but before I do, I'd like to thank our amazing sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors. And if you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Okay. Let's introduce the panel. Today we've got Cllr Mansfield. She's the co-owner of the £3.5 million Gloucester Food Dock development, which we're all very excited about here, that's taking place at the Gloucester Docks. We've got Cllr MAX WILKINSON. He's the lead for economic development, culture, tourism, wellbeing for Cheltenham Borough Council. He's also the parliamentary candidate for the LIB Democrats in Cheltenham. So welcome to him for the first time, Max. We've also got Andy Bates. He's the CFO of Gloucestershire College, responsible for 800 staff, 10,000 students, and a turnover of £40 million. Very exciting news this week. They've got the new construction college coming along as well. So I'm sure we'll catch up with Andy about that. And finally, not least, my friend for over 10 years is Mark Henworth. He is the owner of Gloucester Framing and Art Shop on Commercial Road. He took the business over 3 years. Welcome to Punchline Talks, everybody. So let's have a look at what is making the headlines today. We'll just quickly scoot through the papers courtesy of the BBC. We got the Times, mortgage misery for millions. The Daily Mail, the Titanic claims 5 more lives. The Metro, Titan 5 died in implosion. The Daily Express, Titan claims lives of 5 more victims. The Daily Mirror, lost to the deep. The Sun, they had no chance. The Financial Times, Bank of England takes interest rates to 5% in efforts to put a lid on inflation. And Sunak rules out tax cuts after interest rates hit 5%. The Guardian, recession fears and inflation forces bank to raise rates to 15% high. And the Daily Telegraph, US accused of turning against UK over NATO. And last not least, the big drip. Who cares? Right. It's very sad news about Titan. It goes without saying, but let's move on to the stories that are really affecting us here in business in the UK, and that's interest rates rises. Max, what have you got for the paper, please?
Sure. Well, a couple of stories here caught my eye on page 8 of the Eye. It's MPs pushing for relief over mortgage payments for some homeowners, and the bank governor under attack from Tories over rate rises. And as you know, as a politician, we do a lot of door knocking. We hear from people all the time. My inbox is usually bulging with people asking me questions and just telling me what's going on in their lives, really. And at the moment, there is one recurring theme, that's mortgage rates, and actually people who are renting as well are really suffering at the moment. Clearly, interest rate rises are making our mortgage payments go up. I spoke to someone earlier in the week who told me that not so long ago their monthly payments had quadrupled. That was a Cheltenham resident, you know, this person said that they would get through it, but they were pretty furious. I spoke to somebody else from Cheltenham Kings who was more emotional about it, actually, they'd been in a position where they'd retired, and you know, they're now back at work, not working one job but 2 jobs, and families across our town and across our county are going to be really sorely hit by this, and that's just the people who own their own homes. If we're looking at people who are trying to buy their own homes as first-time buyers, and of course our county needs to attract more and more young people, and we need to be able to keep more and more young people here after they've been to places like Gloucester or the universities. Well, that's a massive problem for first-time buyers as well, because the number of mortgage products that they've got at their disposal is decreasing, and they're much less attractive than they once were. And then, you know, for those of us who are renting, it's really difficult when you see that rents have outstripped earnings for 21 months in a row. It tells a story, and it's a huge challenge for homeowners in our county, a huge challenge for renters. But I think the business community, which needs to recruit people and retain people in our county, will be having an eye on this as well. And just as an aside point, I did chat to a restaurateur in Cheltenham earlier in the week, who had tears in his eyes as he was telling me about the current travails that he's going through. mostly to do with energy bills, and times are about to be really tough out there. At the point about the Bank of England governor being under attack there, that's an interesting sideline in this story, isn't it? Because politicians sometimes might claim that, you know, this is nothing to do with them, and try to look for scapegoats. Well, it seems like the Bank of England governor might be a scapegoat over the next few weeks and months.
I think he's in for a bit of a pacing as the politicians turn him in. That goes very nicely into inflation, actually, because as more and more people have to pay for bigger mortgages, it's going to suck money out of the economy, and that's going to make it more more difficult for them to afford to go to eat out on the hospitality, maybe buy frames. Sarah, you've got a major development going on, especially in the hospitality trade. Does that worry you?
I mean, I think the economy is also always a major factor in anything, for any business, including ours. And you know, we've got 15 young businesses coming to join us, but we work with them. We've structured arrangements such that we share in their pain and gain. And you know, at the end of the day, the world doesn't stop. We keep going with these things, and we're looking forward to it. So it's always a concern, but you just adjust and adjust the economy that you've got in the background.
Mark, obviously, thanks ever so much for Sarah. Just very quickly, over to you. You've seen steady rises in prices of your frames, haven't you? Frames, glass. What sort of cost have you been looking at?
Well, we've tried to obviously keep a lid on what we've passed on, but the glass prices went up 30% a year ago. The frame, the raw materials we make the frames out of went up to a similar amount. You know, like I say, I can't pass that directly on, because that would just make you know, the people would walk back out the shop. So I've just had to take some hits, and yeah, so we've tried to diversify a little bit. We've got a printing service now, so bought a decent Cllr printer, and we can do that in-house. So that's brought a bit of business in, and we've got a small gallery area now as well. So, and that's doing quite well. So it's just look for other avenues really to try and get some margins.
Okay, well, let's flip back. Thanks ever so much for that. We'll flip back over to the papers. Sarah, thanks for that, Max. Sarah, what have you picked out for us, please?
So I've got a few business stories that loosely interlink. The first is that it's Employee Ownership Day. So Sharon White's written a column in the Guardian about that. And you know, the point that's being made by this event is that employee ownership businesses are resilient, that they're bedded into their communities, and that they offer long-term jobs for people. And I think that's a really interesting model when you reflect on some of the other things that we can see in the news today, such as the rail strikes, and obviously we've had strikes for a long time now, and finding business models where strikes aren't as prevalent, where people share in the future of the business is very important. It also, then you look at the farce going on with Musk and Zuckerberg, and the egos that are there within that business, and you try and find models that take that out, so we can all work like grown-ups with each other. But I think importantly, you know, with this economic backdrop that we've just been talking about, this division between the wealth and those without wealth. I read somewhere, and I couldn't find the source, but I read this week that 50 families in the UK have the same wealth as 33 million families. Now, that's just a nonsense. So again, with that backdrop, we're trying to find models where in business the wealth is shared better, where people and I think the other thing that I really like about the employee ownership model is that it beds people into the community. We're very keen with that, the Food Dock. We've been recruiting from the local community. We're going to have our staff working in charities voluntarily for 3 days a year in the charities within the community. And I think that it's hugely important these days, with the backdrop that we've got, that the businesses bed into their community, look after their employees, share that vision with their employees, and we try and take this ego out of it, and hopefully that would reduce the strikes, reduce the strife as well that people have.
It's funny, isn't it, how the rail strikes? It's a throwback to the 1970s, and here they go again.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's not go too bad on it. It's too bloody depressing. Thanks ever so much for that, Sarah. Andy, let's go over to you. Andy, what have you picked out from us for today's papers, please?
So one item I've picked out today is, I'm sure people have seen it, Manchester, University of Manchester have had a huge cyber attack. And I think this story is just really interesting because it's not all about big businesses that have been attacked from cyber. It is public businesses and as well. And the interesting one about the Manchester attack is that they're contacting students and staff individually and basically saying, look, we've got data on you, and your vice chancellor, your managers of your institution aren't doing anything about it. There's an email that's come out that's been public which basically says we've offered an amount if the bosses of the university pay this cash amount, that we won't release your data, but they don't care. That is what these hackers are saying, and it's a very articulate letter that's been going out, and it's naming the leaders of the university individually and saying this. So it's just a different tactic that they're taking, and it's not financial information or anything like that. This is personal information that they may have on students, so whether they've got criminal records or whether they've done drug tests or things like that on students and things like that. So really interesting one, and just another way of where these cyber attackers are thinking of different ways, and it's mainly around reputational damage that they're going for. So I think all educational institutions need to be thinking about this, and all institutions that sort of hold data on people, even if it's not financial. So yeah, really interesting. And obviously with Cheltenham being the cyber capital of the country, then it only shows, you know, how important those cyber skills are, and getting those cyber skills into businesses so that they can protect themselves.
And it's amazing, isn't it? Gloucester City Council have only just managed to clear up the mess that was created from their cyber attack, which we all know about, that took down so much of it and actually cost, I think it was over £1 million as well. So it goes to show how important that cyber is going to be, not just to Cheltenham, Gloucester, but actually to the country, isn't it, as a whole? Thanks ever so much for that. We're going to go over to you, Mark. Thanks for joining Punchline Talks today. What have you picked out from us, mate, from the papers?
I've got the Paul McCartney story in the Guardian. It's talking about his yeah, there you go. So it's just talking about how there was a bit of an uproar on how much he's used AI in this latest Beatles release that he's done. And I thought it just opened up a wider sort of issue with the effects of AI and how it's going to, I mean, this article is all about how artists are going to be paid if AI starts moving into the music sort of industry. So he's just had to clarify that he only used it a little bit. But I mean, on a wider sort of issue, it is going to be interesting to see how it is going to move into all fields of business and personal life. You know, it is going to be a major thing that's going to affect society in the next sort of 5 years, really. And
art as well, Mark. I've seen.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I mean, you know, graphic design and just art itself. You know, music, and even professions. I was reading the other day that that they've used AI lawyers in real trials. Yes. And they've won.
So, I mean, the amount of people that keep telling me that I'm going to be out of a job as a journo, we're all going to be replaced. I can't say it myself. There's no heart in that kind of stuff. That's the only thing.
No, I think there will always be a part for original art and original, you know, but it is still going to eat away at fringes at the very least.
Yeah, well, I've seen somebody write a chat part. I was on a live stream with them, and they were writing a review of the Everyman Theatre. And it took them like 30 seconds, and then all they had to do was rewrite it. Quite frightening, but they had to still have somebody there to say whether the show was good or not, or whatever.
Right, okay.
Anyway, thanks ever so much, Mark. I'm going to go over to you now, Max, and let's talk about Cheltenham, because Cheltenham's doing well, isn't it? The high street's looking good, because you're obviously the lead for culture, tourism, and well-being. It's a massive portfolio that you look after. I mean, how is Cheltenham performing out there? What's your view on it?
Well, I think the Americans would probably say we're beating the spread. So we're outperforming most other places. The vacancies rate that we've got in the high street is much lower than some other comparable places. There were some stats that came out that said we actually had a lower vacancy rate than Bath, and often comparisons are drawn between Cheltenham and Bath. I don't know whether that is accurate as of today, because that was a couple of months ago, but the fact that we're competing well with places like that suggests we're on the right track. But it's not a cause for complacency. We've had the report done by a guy called Ian Nicholson from the Vacant Shops Academy to work out how we can work better with commercial property landlords and how we can best flex the planning system to do things like introduce more residential into the town centre. That's going to be really important, not just because it makes the town centre more vibrant, but because, as we mentioned earlier on, we've got this issue with making sure that young people have a place to stay in Cheltenham, a place to live in Cheltenham, and that they find it attractive. So we've got challenges, but we've got solutions as well. And there's going to be a report coming through the council probably in a few weeks' time, just to sort of firm some of that up, and then a further detailed action plan later in the year.
I mean, when I go to Cheltenham, it's really, really buzzing. There was a bit of a worry, wasn't there? At one point, Montpellier was looking a bit, there's a lot of voids there, but like you said, they filled it all up. What's very interesting, Regent's Arcade's doing well now. You've got the new bowling alley going there, sort of sportsy thing going on the side there as well, isn't it?
Yeah, very excited about Roxy Lanes. I've been to one of the lanes elsewhere in Bristol, and it's a great way to spend a day, whether you're out with friends or whether you're going out with family. And generally, the leisure offer in Cheltenham High Street and around the town centre is pretty good, and it's still a beautiful place to come and visit. And of course, with more than 30 festivals throughout the year, including the horse racing festivals, and then the science, the literature, the jazz, the music, there is always quite a lot to do in Cheltenham, which does mean that in terms of tourism spend, we're likely to continue to be pretty successful. But as I said, we can't be complacent, and we've just always got to be one step ahead, like we were during the pandemic, where we were one of the first places to deregulate some of the streets and allow our hospitality businesses to have cafes and chairs and tables out on the street. We led the way there, and our planning department won awards for that. So we've just got to keep innovating. We've got to be one step ahead all the time. And thankfully, we've got a really good population in Cheltenham here of people who tend to support our local independent businesses as well.
And also, you were one of the first councils to pay the furlough money scheme as well to businesses, which I know many are very grateful to. Thanks ever so much for that, Max. So we'll go over to you, Andy. Andy, now we wrote a story a little while ago, I think it was only last week, wasn't it, about this new part of the college you're going to build, the construction college. Can you tell us a bit about that, please?
Yeah, so this is a brand new state-of-the-art sustainable construction centre that's coming to our Cheltenham campus, about 7,000 square foot of space where we're going to be able to be training the next generation in construction skills. And I think if anyone tries to have any work done on their house at the moment, whether it's a plumber or electrician, then it's not easy. So we know that there's a massive demand for these skills. A lot of the trades we've taught in Gloucester before, so we've got big provision in Gloucester, but what this has allowed us to do, this £4 million grant, has enabled us to offer some of those trades in Cheltenham. So it's great for the people of Cheltenham, so they don't have to travel over to Gloucester anymore to do that training. And we do know that some of the more deprived areas and those kids don't travel. So we're hoping this is really going to help that NEET community as well, get them trained up so that they can work on some of the projects that we know are coming to Cheltenham. There's plenty of houses being built. We've got the Golden Valley development. So the demand for construction skills is only going to get bigger. So yes, £5.2 million project. And we've had great support from Cheltenham Borough Council, from Max and his team, great support from local businesses. So it's a real team effort really to get this money, and this was national money that could have gone anywhere in the country. So the fact that we've got it in Cheltenham, I'm really proud about that, and as a Cheltenham resident, I'm glad that it's coming here rather than anywhere else. So yeah, great stuff.
And also the college is leading the way in sort of green and sustainability, isn't it, Willie?
Yeah, so we've decarbonised both our Cheltenham and Gloucester campus with heat pumps. That we've done that project over the last three years. So I think we're the first college nationally to be purely carbon zero in terms of not using gas. and generating more electricity than we need. So we're actually also, we'll be powering a number of homes in Cheltenham with our solar panels, especially the last few weeks have been very lots of sunshine. So that's been great.
Is that going to turn into a nice little earner for you, Andy?
Well, it will help subsidise some of our training. It's not doing us any harm. Yeah.
Okay, thanks ever so much for that. Great news for the town and for the college. Sarah, let's go over to you. Obviously, you know, the food dock, it's coming together. It seems to be that you've been there forever, if you don't mind saying.
Feels a little like that at times, yes.
How long have you been on site now?
Well, we've done 2 phases. So if you know, we've taken over the old commercial offices of the docks, and there was a whole piece of work there to refurbish those buildings. We had to completely replace the roof and the windows and so on. So that was a contract all of its own. And then the new building the extension on has been another contract. So we've been there for a while now, sort of coming on to a year and a half, couple of years. So we are reaching the end. What's lovely now, we've got Hot Kettle who are the brewery that are coming into one of the spaces. They've started their fit out, so we're moving into that stage now, which is much more exciting for us. And you know, we've been talking to the businesses that are coming to us and joining us about their fit out plans and how they're going to get in there and what their designs and their finishes are. So that all starts to become very exciting and very real, which is the point we're at now.
Why did you choose Gloucester? I mean, obviously you do these developments. You're based in Bath originally. Why Gloucester? What was it? Was it the building? Was it the opportunity that just presented itself?
I think there are a few things about Gloucester. And we came to Gloucester some years ago and had a look around, and one of the things is just we felt there was a real need for something like this, in terms of something that celebrated what Gloucester had from its region, a different type of food offer, one that was built on the food offer that was in the region and beyond. And so that was a major thing. The other was, I mean, the location just stood out hugely for us. I mean, we just stood in the building and thought, this is it. You know, where are you going to get a view like this? Many places in the UK wouldn't have a view like we have in Gloucester. And that relationship with the water, with the city centre behind, was something that we were very enthusiastic about. And also in a city, we saw a city that was on the up, you know, very much we felt that we were moving with the stream, as it were. And you can see all the developments coming out of the ground at the Forum. It's lovely to see what the university are doing in the Debenhams building. You know, there's a lot happening in the city, and it feels coordinated, and that's exciting. And something that we've found since we've been here is just, it's very welcoming. I mean, the enthusiasm that people have for what we're doing is fantastic and really motivating. And you know, we are there longer than we thought we'd be. But people haven't had a go at us. They're you know, still enthusiastic, and that's fantastic, and we really appreciate it.
No, well, we all can't wait, and I've been very fortunate to be invited by yourself to see those views, and I don't know if you've seen my videos. Yep. And it's been fed. Well, it's breathtaking. You're dead right. I don't think you could get many views like that from that top floor of that building overlooking. We're gonna have you back down in a couple of weeks, aren't we, Mark? Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it, and for your grand opening. Boom! Hope to be there. Well, just to be clear, there will not be a grand opening. We're dealing with lots of small independent businesses. The worst thing you can do to them is say, right, we're going to have a massive opening for all these staff that you're training up, for all these systems that you're testing. Now we're going to hit you hard. So we'll let them open up one by one as they fit out, and just get themselves into the groove. I've got to ask you, you might not answer this, which is your one out of the 15 that really excites you the most? That's very cruel. Well, one of the ones we've announced today is, I think, a great story. Or in fact yesterday, Hetty and her brownies, and she's Gloucester born and bred. She started her business in the docks. She's worked with Gloucester Services and sold her brownies, and now set up a bakery and her own cafe in the Moorlands Industrial Estate, and she's taking a great space which overlooks the water, really on the edge there. And I think that's just a lovely story. She uses regional producers.
she's a regional success story, and that for me says everything about the Food Dock in terms of working with people and business success stories from Gloucester and growing with them.
And you know what, Sarah? One of the nicest things you've said there is about how friendly the people are in Gloucester. You know, I'm not from Gloucester originally, and like lots of people that come here, we all tend to fall in love with it, the place and the people, and it's the people that make the place at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Same as regeneration. Forget the buildings. It's all about helping those people. Thanks ever so much, Sarah. It's great to see you as always. Mark,
And you?
let's talk about you. So you took over. You worked at the framing shop for 10 years, wasn't it? I used to pop in there and see you when I was delivering my magazines and stuff. We built a nice rapport. I was only around the corner from you. You're always a great pit stop for me, by the way, as being such a friendly bloke. But tell us, when you took over the business, what was the biggest thing that you learned? I mean, it must have been horrendous, actually.
It was a bit of a sort of thrown in at the deep end, really. I'd been managing it for a while, and then the opportunity to take it over came, and I took that. And I suppose the bit that I disliked the most and probably found the most difficult was dealing with all the paperwork issues, you know, the employment laws, when, you know, and payroll and all the tax issues and all that. It's not really my bag, and I didn't like it. And to be honest, when I was starting, I was doing it all on a shoestring, so it was a case of having to do all those things myself as well. So now I can sort of outsource those a little bit, but I can just concentrate on what I want to be doing. But yeah,
I mean, you're well known for the framing sort of side of things. You know, has the industry changed a lot? So it's not just general framing, is it? Can you just tell us a little bit about the business, please?
I mean, the framing side of things, I suppose it is traditional in a way. I mean, it doesn't change. It's not that innovative. It's quite traditional. You know, but I've had to diversify a little bit, as I was saying before, just to sort of, because the margins have been squeezed with all the increases on everything. Then I've had to move to provide a printing service, and I've got a little gallery now, and hopefully all these people going to the Food Dock will be walking past my shop and see all the lovely art in the windows, and you know, we can make some margins that way, and try to keep the framing side as reasonable as possible. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks ever so much, Mark. I've got some stuff here. I do need more framing. You think my house is full of pictures? Anyway, right, we're coming to the end of the show. Please, if you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Guys, what have you picked out from this week's Punchline? I'm going to start with you, Andy, because you're running out of time, and I know you might have to scoot off. So, what have you picked from this week's Punchline?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, I really enjoyed your video. I always like your videos. I think they're great. And I enjoy looking around the Pro Cook factory or the Pro Cook warehouse. Massive space. You can't miss it as well on the motorway when you're going past. And a great example of a Gloucestershire business that's grown. I think I heard that he started it in his bedroom, didn't he, Mark? He was saying in the video, and now they employ 500 odd people over the country, turnover over 60 million, and I think everyone's got a Pro Cook knife or something in their house, and I think it's just a great example of a business that's doing really well for Gloucestershire and employing plenty of people. So so keep it up with those videos. I think it's really interesting. It's good.
Thanks very much. The nice thing about it,
and I will have to shoot off, Mark, I'm not being rude, but I've got to go. But thank you very much for having me.
No worries. Always great to see you, Andy. Catch up with you very soon. Cheers, mate.
Yeah.
The other thing about that Pro Cook was really interesting was he explained about the way that the product comes in, that goes out, and the way that he ships it, you know, a bit like Amazon and all the way the orders work. And there is a part 2 to that video. You get the chance to watch it as well. Really, and what's really nice about Daniel is that he's very level. You know, it doesn't matter about all his success and things like this. It's not gone to his head. It's always nice to see. So, a bit like yourself, Max, all the success coming your way. What have you picked out from Punchline, please?
With a fair wind, a bit of success in the future, Mark. You never know. My story pick for this week was the one about the Cheltenham Minster Exchange development in the town centre. Obviously, this is a scheme that's been rumbling on for a little while now. It's in what, to my mind, is one of Cheltenham's most underused assets in its public realm, the Minster. I think it's Cheltenham's oldest building. And the idea is, of course, we can get more businesses based in the Minster Exchange, which is a modular development, and also it'll be a new home for Cheltenham festivals as well. So they'll be able to have sort of creative events and hopefully merging those creative and cultural and the cyber ecosystem as well. So we've got to the stage now where a little bit of extra money's had to go in. Obviously, Cheltenham Borough Council isn't the developer. The developers have had a couple of problems, but we're sticking with it because we know how important it's going to be for Cheltenham's cyber and tech ecosystem and for our cultural sectors as well. And when it's finished, hopefully next year, and it's on track for next year, I'm told, it's going to be something that's going to be really special, and it will reinvigorate that part of the town and the lower high street area. And of course, in due course, because the council's invested in some property adjoining there, it does open up a really big opportunity for regeneration in and around that area, around Poundland and the brewery as well. And of course, the brewery's already done a huge amount to make that end of the high street a place where people go to shop and enjoy leisure and eat and drink. So I think this is a really positive story about the Minster Exchange, and I was pleased to see it covered by Punchline as an exclusive earlier in the week.
Okay, thanks ever so much for that, Max. Really appreciate it, and it's a story that we've been watching very, very carefully as it's been developing. Sarah, what have you picked out from this week's Punchline, please?
Well, apart from the fact that you very kindly announced the businesses such as Hetty coming along and joining us, yet more businesses joining us at the Food Dock. The one that I picked out was the one on the rugby, the women's rugby tomorrow, and renaming King's Home to Queen's Home, which is a nice sort of PR thing to draw attention to. I sat on the board of the Netball Super League nationally, and I'm very keen on women's elite sport and women's sport generally, and what it can do for people in that side. And I think it's great. It's great to have such a big match there, and it's great that women's sport is finally getting some traction, as it should do, because there are some amazing women out there, and not just in terms of what they do in their sporting world, but in what they have to do to get there, because it's largely amateur. They're professionals. They have jobs to do, so it's good to see. It's good to see some coverage on it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can't wait to see it myself. Mark, what have you picked out from this week's Punch?
I saw your article about the Tewkesbury Council live streaming their meetings, and I thought that was a good idea, and maybe something that should be sort of a general practice for maybe give us a bit more confidence in our
Our elected leaders.
But it's taken a bit of a battering, our belief in our politicians of late, I think. And even the Sheffield Council, where they were chopping down the trees and it was all done a little bit hush-hush, if they'd had something like this in practice, hopefully things like that wouldn't happen. So I think it's a good idea.
I think it's great for democracy at the end of the day, and especially as the media themselves are thinly based. And we don't have a lot of people to cover this stuff. To be able to watch it in the morning or go back to it later on, rather than rocking up to a council meeting. The only thing, Max will know this more than I do, that those little nuances that you see when you're actually there in the building, you don't see on camera, and the relationships that you can build with councillors to get the inside, sort of count of behind the scenes, they don't happen.
They're not mutually exclusive, though, are they? You could, it's there if you need to catch up, but you can still go in person as well.
Yes. And I think every single council should actually live stream them. I really do.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we've got time for this week. Thanks ever so much for joining Punchline Talks. If you enjoy the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'd just like to thank our amazing sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors. Until next week, we'll see you again. Stay safe. Stay watching Punchline. Bye.